What's going on, guys? It is Matt and Tyler with First Read Fantasy. Today we're going to do some Dynasty buy sell. Tyler, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Ready to get into it, see if we can find some values here.
Yeah. So if you're in here, be sure to throw your questions in the chat. Let us know you're here. Like the stream; it greatly helps us out. And we're going to get rolling right into it, man. And our first Dynasty buy is going to be George Pickens. And when I actually presented this topic to you, Tyler, I said he's going to be a sell for me, and that quickly changed. I went and checked his price, and in my opinion, I think we're just a little far off on what he could be. And what his value actually is. I figured moving to the Dallas Cowboys, especially as sitting here wearing my Washington gear, this hurts. He's one of those players that, he has the production. We saw last year 59 receptions, 103 targets, 900 yards, 3 touchdowns. Not really a great offense production for him, but when you look at the quarterback play, it wasn't that good either. I think moving over to this pass friendly offense in Dallas, that's only going to help him. He's still young. He's only 24 years old. We know that the pass catchers in Dallas are going to get the opportunity. Dak's going to sling the ball all over the place. We already got reports coming out that he's going to be healthy and ready to go once the season kicks off. Even with that bad quarterback play, he averaged almost 12 points per game in full PPR. And I think it's pretty impressive because Dak is better than any quarterback he's had so far in Pittsburgh. And I think that, like I said, this offense is going to be friendly towards nurturing a pass catcher and adding some more depth for him to kind of have the ability to not necessarily have to be the guy. CeeDee Lamb's going to be on the other side of the field commanding a bunch of attention. And don't get me wrong, he's going to be fantastic and be a great wide receiver in fantasy. But Pickens is one of those guys that right now, in my opinion, is being valued a little bit off market. I figured he'd be someone that was commanding a first just because of being the wide receiver 2 in Dallas. But he's not. When I went and checked prices over on Dynasty Data Lab, he was kind of floating around a mid-second, a late second. And to me, that's really, really cheap. I would absolutely pay that if I needed to go find a wide receiver 3 for my team with the upside to finish as a wide receiver 2. I totally think that's within the realm of possibility. When you go over on Keep Trade Cut and you look at their rankings, he's 33 overall. And there's names like Ricky Pearsall ahead of him. And, Pearsall's got a lot of opportunity, but I would much rather have George Pickens attached to Dak Prescott and this Dallas Cowboys offense than I'd rather have, Ricky Pearsall, which is a complete guess. You don't know that that's going to work out. So in my opinion, I'm absolutely all in on buying Pickens right now. And I didn't think that was going to be the case. Like I said, when I started this, I thought it was going to be a sell. But here I am. Let's buy.
Yeah, man. You brought it up, and you were saying, "Man, I'm going to sell George Pickens," and I was like, "Okay, I can get behind that. I'll buy along into that narrative." And then literally, it was like 10 minutes later, maybe that it might not even have been that long. And you texted back and you were like, actually, I'm going to buy it. So I am kind of interested in his price. If you're getting him for a second round pick, that's probably a little on the low side. So I think it's probably a good dart throw shot. Like you said, wide receiver 3 that could finish as a wide receiver 2. I want to just kind of throw some names out there. So on Sleeper in our home league that me and you are part of and kind of co-founded, George Pickens, his ADP for this year, which is a half-point PPR league, his ADP is 78. He's the wide receiver 29 off the board. As of right now, the 2 that are the closest to him, you have DK at wide receiver 28, who is ADP 77, and Jameson Williams, who is a wide receiver 30 with an ADP of 79.3. I think you might have hit the sweet spot here, honestly, because I feel like both of those other wide receivers in DK and JMO are probably, they're probably going to end up requiring more than a second to get. You're probably looking at least a first. With that being said, though, I know the price may be a second. And like I said, value-wise, maybe it sounds right, but I just can't get behind George Pickens, man. I watched him in Pittsburgh. They didn't have much else to work with, so he was always, making these spectacular catches. And I get that he's in a more high-powered offense in Dallas, but we have also seen that offense go off the rails very easily. If Dak gets hurt, if maybe something doesn't transpire the way we think it will. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb is the one. He has no opportunity to become that one there, at least for the foreseeable future, barring some injury or something like that. But for me, I still want to sell him. I get why you say it's a buy. I do. I get the second round price. And like I said, the guys he's going around, they're all going for more than that. So if it's something that you're just purely looking for a depth piece, and you're just like, all right, I'm going to take a shot, see what happens. Let's do it. That's fine. But for me, I've just never been a big Pickens guy, so I'll stay out of that market. I would still probably sell him based off of upside, especially if somebody's willing to give me a first, because they haven't caught up to that value price yet. Then I would probably still sell him. Um, but other than that, I mean, do you have any reservations about George Pickens this season, especially at his ADP? Like I said, he's at 78. You've got DK at 77 and JMO at 79. So do are you picking George Pickens out of those three? Is that who you would pick there?
I'd probably take Pickens over JMO personally. I think wanting to put all your eggs in JMO's basket is really betting on the deep ball, betting on the big play. And I think there will be weeks where he will win you the week and he will absolutely perform and he'll drop 20, 25 points and just be a huge swing in your favor. But generally speaking, I think Pickens is going to have that opportunity to be a stable force going forward. And that's not what JMO is. We know what that offense is going to be. It's going to be Laporta. It's going to be Gibbs. It's going to be Montgomery. And it's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't think JMO is going to suddenly come in and be a guy to command elite level volume and then provide the production with that. Whereas I think Pickens steps into a role where, we've seen two pass catchers thrive in Dallas. Michael Gallup had plenty of opportunities. Brandon Cooks had plenty of opportunities. So I don't think that that's going to necessarily be an issue in this offense. And I will say probably the most important part of this, and generally this is the case with every single league, but when we're talking about a guy like George Pickens, because he plays for the Dallas Cowboys, it is going to be league dependent. Most leagues have at least one Dallas Cowboys fan. The home league you're talking about, I think we have 4 of them in there. So if Pickens is on one of those teams, he ain't getting moved, and no one's going to move him for a second. But if you're in a general league where the manager, is a Bears fan and he doesn't care, then yeah, I think there's an opportunity where you say, hey, I'll give you my second. Give me George Pickens and let me get that value. Because like I said, he is the one player in that role right there where we're talking about those guys in that range that, yeah, he's currently being priced at a wide receiver 3, but I could absolutely see him finishing as a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get the buy. I get why you would, want to go after the George Pickens type. Like we said, being part of a high-powered offense that, well, we assume is going to be high-powered at this point. I've always been a big JMO guy. I liked him when he got drafted there. I know he didn't start out the hottest, but I feel like last year he really took a step up. And so for me personally, out of those 3 guys in DK, Pickens, and JMO, I would probably have Pickens at the lowest out of those 3 for me, but that's just personal preference. I think they're very similar players. I think they're projected for probably about the same stat line. Because, like we said, JMO, he's not going to be the wide receiver 1 on his team. He's behind Amon-Ra. Amon-Ra is your, slot guy who's getting all the targets, just like CD is. So at this point, you're kind of splitting hairs here, and it's just personal preference. So if you like what you've seen more out of Pickens and you think, hey, man, he can make some difficult catches, I think they're going to throw the ball more down the field than somebody, like Dallas like the Lions. He's also not dealing with as much competition, right? We don't even really know who the running back is there right now. I know they have Miles Sanders and Javonte, but we're not really worried about them. So your high-powered offense is going to have to come based on passing volume. So I get it. I really do. But for me, I think I'm probably pulling him down to my lower out of the 3 that I kind of brought up there.
Yeah. And the biggest thing for me, too, is it's going to hinge on whether Dak Prescott stays healthy. If he plays the entire season, we know that there's a really good opportunity for him to throw the ball almost 600 times. I mean, just looking at his box scores for the seasons, 2023 through 590 times, 2021 through 596 times, 2019 through 596 times. So if he's going to play every single game, they're going to throw the ball a ton. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity, and there's not really another wide receiver in that offense that's going to command targets other than CeeDee Lamb. And we know we'll talk about the tight end situation later. But other than that, you mentioned the running back play. Not very good. That does not scare me. I think if anything, that just kind of aids towards, all right, let's spread out. Let's throw this ball and let Dak just kind of cook. And I don't care how many interceptions he throws. If he throws the ball 596 times, give me that opportunity every single day. But before we move on, Tyler, let's catch up with the chat here.
Let's do it.
Jamie's in here. Thanks, Jamie, for tuning in. Chris is here. He says, yo, yo, yo. And he's waiting on that Kenneth Walker name drop. I don't know what you want me to say, man. You're a hater. It is what it is. Michael says, have a great show. We appreciate you, Hoff. And Chris adds, if you could move JMO for Pickens and maybe get a third back, I'd do that in a heartbeat. I would too. I mean, I'd absolutely do that, especially if I'm contending and I need some stable value. Albert, as always, is in here. We appreciate you for being here, Albert. And then finally, Vote Trades here over on X. Tyler says, A-Chain or Chuba, Darnell Mooney in a 2026 late first. What would you do with this deal here? I mean, kind of stepping back, pulling up my rankings here. Let me get to my running back rankings. A-Chain, he's one of those guys where he's at the top for pretty much everyone. I think generally speaking, he's going to be top 5. He's top 5 for me, being 5th overall. So jumping down to Chuba, that's a pretty big fall. Now, I think Chuba's going to have great production this year, but long term, you're going to have that fall off. So what's that 2026 first look like? He says it's late here. I don't love that. I really don't. I think you can get more for Devon A-Chain, and I don't hate the idea of using someone like A-Chain to tear off and go get some more value, get some depth pieces. But Darnell Mooney in a late 26 first is not what I would do.
No, I kind of agree. I do like Chuba in terms of like value. I think he is somebody who he is going to outproduce where people have him valued now. You can get him later in drafts and redraft. People still have not caught up to his value as far as the production he's putting on the field for Dynasty. But the bad part about it is it's just the other two. I know it's a 2026 first, and we're always like acquire firsts, when you can in future in Dynasty because you don't know what they're going to turn into. That 2026 late first could be a team where, maybe this isn't the championship team. So maybe it's one of those teams that was in the playoffs that finished like, 4th or something. So right now they're sitting there and it's the 108 or 109, what happens if their main stars get hurt? This is a game of luck and chance that we play every year. This 2026 late first could turn into something completely different by the time next year starts. But that being said, it is a late first right now, and the gap between Chuba and A-Chain is more than Darnell Mooney and a late 2026 first. You mentioned tearing down off of A-Chain, maybe going that route. Would you be comfortable if you change this deal? So I have A-Chain, as my running back 5 as well, and actually, oddly enough, we both have Chuba at running back 17. Would you kind of tear down here, and would you go from A-Chain to somebody like Travion Henderson in a pick? Or
absolutely.
One of the other rookies this year, Gavin here brings up Jacobs or Kenneth Walker plus. I think both of those would be good values here. You're looking at somebody like you're still getting that stable production, but you're not having to go so far down and push off into next year's draft class where we're not even sure what that late first looks like. Last year we had a great idea of like, okay, there's going to be a ton of running backs come out. There's still going to be, 3 or 4 high profile wide receivers. There's going to be a few quarterbacks if you play super flex. And then our tight ends, we all knew, Colson Loveland was up there. I think Tyler Warren was up there for most people, but if not, he should have been, obviously. So we knew that first round was going to be kind of heavy. We knew that was coming in. Whereas next year, we're still kind of, looking at who is going to end up there. So I don't think next year's class is as deep. So for me, I'm taking A-Chain and either holding him for this deal or I'm trying to move him for more stable production plus a little bit more. I'm not too worried about Mooney here.
Yeah, Mooney's just kind of that random throw in. He might play for you once or twice the entire season. Great DFS play, though, last year. I mean, if you want to talk about Jacobs or Walker that Gavin mentioned, great options there, too. I would absolutely entertain moving down from A-Chain to Walker. I'm higher on Walker than most people. If Chris is still in here, he hates Kenneth Walker. So, it is what it is. Josh Jacobs, I love Josh Jacobs, and I think he's going to provide great production this year. I mean, obviously, you're kind of betting a little bit more with the age, the offense kind of changing there. And I like him, but he's definitely a tier down. And I mean, I'm staring at my rankings here. Moving down from A-Chain to Walker's two tiers. Moving down from A-Chain to Jacobs is 4 tiers. But You know, I have Jacobs 2 tiers ahead of Chuba Hubbard too. So I try to play within those tiers and see if I can find a way to just capitalize on value, especially if I'm just minimizing the point differential between the two players. So, like you said, if you could move from Achane and go get, let's just say Brees Hall, and you add a second or you add a wide receiver that you could flex play, I'm all for that because you're not really sacrificing that many points or age while also adding depth to your roster. Whether you use that player or flip that player, that is absolutely something that you can do.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think, we talk about playing in tiers all the time. That's kind of our, where we like to stay. We like to look at, okay, all these people are in this tier. That's, like you said, 2 tiers, below where I'm at now. All right, what's my tier difference? Am I getting stability? Am I getting volatility? What am I getting? So definitely something to keep an eye on. In that deal, I would keep Achane out of that. But how about we move on to our next play? What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I think this may shock a few people here, but I'm going to actually have A.J. Brown as a sale. The wide receiver from the Philadelphia Eagles. He is coming in to his age 28 season. You're looking at somebody who is obviously the wide receiver 1 for his team. And him and Jalen Hurts have some great rapport here. You're looking at last year, he had 67 receptions on 97 targets, 1,079 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That yards per route run of over 3 is insane. And you may be thinking, well, why would you sell him here then? What's the point? This is a very interesting topic that comes up in fantasy football. It's a recurring cycle. You get these top wide receivers that they start to they're still producing at a high level, but their age starts to kind of creep up. And so you're wondering when that drop off is. One classic example of this, Matt's going to get a kick out of this when I say this. One classic example of this is Julio Jones. Okay. Julio Jones was amazing on the Falcons. He was a stud. Okay. He looked great. We were all like, okay, he's just going to keep doing it year in, year out. He gets traded. We're like, oh man, he's got so much opportunity. Completely fell on his face, and he never looked the same after that. He was a very similar age to what A.J. Brown is now. Now, we know that A.J. Brown isn't changing team situation, but I feel like you're getting close to where his ceiling is as far as value goes. So I don't really think he's moving up higher than where I really have him at. So for me, if I look at my dynasty rankings, I currently have A.J. Brown as my wide receiver 15. That's kind of where I have him at. So he's not even in my, wide receiver 1 range. That being said, I think there are a lot of people who primarily play redraft who you could probably go out and sell A.J. Brown, and you could get a Garrett Wilson, a Drake London, Travis Hunter. If you're still in on Marv, which I am, you could go get Marv, and probably a big plus at this point. Lad, there are options there who are much younger, who have showed that they can have the same production, maybe not the same explosiveness, but the same production, and are much younger. This is a time where you want to sell before it's too late. I know that is a scary thing to do, and you're like, oh man, like I've got A.J. Brown, and he's my wide receiver too. Maybe you have another like Nico Collins, or you have a Amon-Ra or somebody. So he's the wide receiver 2 on your team. You're like, well, who am I going to go get that can give me that production and still be a superstar? And you have to remember, these wide receivers, they come in and they go every year, and you've got these young guys that are just waiting to blow the top off. You've got Ladd, who looked great as a rookie, JSN, second-year breakout. Everybody's projecting Drake London to be the next big thing this year with Penix coming.
He will be.
So I just think there are names that you can go get and get a plus on top of, if not just trade them straight up, that I would much easily prefer at this point. How do you feel about it? Are you selling A.J. Brown?
Yeah, I'm actually with you. And again, I think a lot of people are going to see the title, see the thumb. They're going to say, "What? Like AJ Brown's good." And don't hear what we're not saying. AJ Brown's going to be awesome this year. He's going to score a
Mhm.
bunch of fantasy points. He's going to be great. But like you said, Tyler, he's hitting that age point. He's 28 years old. You got to find a way to get off the ride at some point. And now is the perfect opportunity because he's going to be productive this upcoming season. And when we say move off of him, again, we're saying play within those tiers, find a way to get value or just even move up. If you want to use AJ Brown and say, I'm going to go all in, I'm going to push the chips in, and I'm going to go try and get a big name wide receiver, like maybe it is Drake London, who I would absolutely say, yeah, go buy him. Throw a plus on top of AJ Brown and push the chips in. Get younger,
Mhm.
get better, and try and continue to compete. Now, on the flip, you can also use him, like you said, to go find another piece. Maybe you tear down from a guy like A.J. Brown to Tet McMillan or Roma Dunze, and you get a plus on top of that. There's probably a world where you can get, A.J. Brown for Lad McConkey or JSN in certain leagues. It's going to depend on how savvy your league really is, just knowing that the age cliff is there. Because, like you said, he's 28 years old. This is going to be a big year for him. He's going to produce. He'll have a great season. But what happens going forward? The other thing is we have to remember that Hurts, I personally don't believe he's that developed as a passer. I think he's adequate. He's just fine. But when you go back and watch the games, you look at the stats, it's not anything that's going to blow you away. Hurts's fantasy production is hinged upon his rushing ability, not his passing ability. I mean, last year he had 248 completions on 361 attempts. We were just talking about how Dak threw the ball almost 600 times. Like the pie is not the same. We're talking about two totally different animals. You add the fact that Saquon Barkley's still in town, I think that this team's going to continue to lean on the run because that's what they're good at, and they should. But again, Jalen Hurts, 18 passing touchdowns last year, 23 the year before that. He's never thrown for 30 passing touchdowns. He's never thrown for more than 25 passing touchdowns. So, and I don't want to focus too much on Hurts, but that matters when we're talking about, well, what can A.J. Brown do? Past 2 years, both years, he's had 7 reception touchdowns. That's fine. That's great. But paired with the volume there, I mean, he had 97 targets. He didn't even eclipse 100 targets. I understand he only played 13 games, so we'll factor that in. But the year before that, when he played 107 games, or excuse me, when he played 17 games, he had 158 targets, which is great. But I don't necessarily think that that's going to be something that can repeat because he is getting older. Father Time is undefeated. You mentioned Julio Jones fall off, Tyreek Hill's fall off. There's all sorts of wide receivers we could talk about where eventually that age cliff hits, and you don't want to be holding the bag when it does happen. So now is a great time to use him to move him and still get someone who's going to provide equal or better fantasy production for your team right now and in the future. Because you can go find names. You mentioned Garrett Wilson. That's another great one. People are kind of low on Garrett Wilson right now. I know coach is buying him all over the dang place. But if you can use A.J. Brown to go get a guy like Garrett Wilson, you got younger and you got arguably more opportunity. Like
Mhm.
I can sit here and critique Justin Fields passing, but we know this. Garrett Wilson has had all the opportunity in the world his entire career so far. I mean, go look at his targets and it's insane. And that's not going to change this year. He is the guy in New York. So I think that it's the time to think about moving A.J. Brown, go find some other players to provide equal opportunity or get some more youth on your roster right now before it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. I was curious just because I knew that I drafted Julio in that league we were talking about earlier. So Julio's last elite season, he was the wide receiver 3. That was in 2019, which would make that 6 years ago, and that means that he fell off at 30. And that is he had one more season in Atlanta after that and was then traded 3 different times to 3 different teams. And so it's just a tale of caution. Just be careful as you get these age cliff guys. I know he's still on contract. I think Chris brought it up. He's still in his prime. I think Chris said he had 2 more years here, and has no signs of slowing down. We did
But
see the injuries for Julio. We
yeah,
did see that. So, but
and
who says
AJ
that it
Brown
doesn't
missed
happen
time too.
now? Hmm.
AJ Brown missed 5 games last year, so we
Yep.
can't look past that. And they're all lower leg related too. Thigh hamstring strains, knee strains, calf strains, like all that
Hmm.
matters. Now I know earlier in his career, in like 2021, he had the whole like chest or maybe a pectoral strain or something like
Yeah.
that. Can't remember what it was, but he has had multiple thigh, knee, and calf strains throughout his career. And that's going to happen. It's to be expected. A lot of players are going to miss time. But I don't think it's fair to say that he's not showing signs of regression. I mean, yeah, don't hear what we're not saying. The production will be there on the field this year. But again, he's 28. Like, it's going to fall off at some point. And once that value turns, there ain't no going back.
Once they start going downhill, it goes downhill quick, and it does not stop. We look at Tyreek Hill. You brought him up. That's a great name to mention. Maybe he gets back to it this year and proves us wrong. But as of right now, I think we're looking at 2 years. I know at least last year for sure, maybe 2 years at this point, where his production is just slowly weaned down from his days as a Chief. So we'll see what it looks like. We're not saying that A.J. Brown is bad for redraft this year. Just saying be cautious. Possibly look to start selling him and get some younger assets.
Yeah, because now it's the perfect opportunity where you can avoid even losing the trade. If you take A.J. Brown and you move him for one of the big name wide receivers, pick one that we've said, whether it's a tier up or tier down, you're not really going to miss that much production or necessarily have any chances that you're taking. Now, if you go get a guy like Tet, you're rolling the dice. That's a rookie. Yep. We've never seen him play. But if you go get a guy like Garrett Wilson, JSN, Ladd McConkey, they've all done it already. So it's not like you're risking it all or you're saying, I don't know what I'm getting. You're getting a known quantity, and that's valuable still because, again, in Dynasty, it's all about the youth. It's all about continuing to be able to put out that roster, to compete because the goal is to not have to rebuild. Now, occasionally you're going to have to, but if you manage your team right, you don't ever have to rebuild. You just keep retooling these players, stay young, find the value where you can, and play within those tiers. But Tyler, I think we've kind of tapped out A.J. Brown unless you've got anything else you want to add to it. If you are here, please be sure to let us know in the chat. Ask us your questions. Give us your thoughts. We're happy to listen to those. Like the stream if you haven't, and we will continue to carry on with our next buy sell. And this will come as no shock to a lot of people. Tyler, I'm going to buy Trevor Lawrence. I did this last year, and it hurt because he got hurt. I understand that I'm the biggest Trevor Lawrence fan in the world. I know my role, and I'm going to stick with my role. And the reason why is because he is so dang cheap in Dynasty right now. I can't get over it. If you go look at Keep Trade Cut, he's currently quarterback 18. And for me, he is much higher in my rankings by 5 spots at quarterback 13. He's not even 26 years old. He's finally going to be healthy. He had all sorts of injuries last year. The offense, I think, is going to be a lot better. We add Travis Hunter to this team. I think that's going to help. We get some running back help. Brenton Strange stepping into a full-time role. We looked last year at his stats, didn't play a ton of games, so we don't want to factor in that too much. But I think he can certainly improve on that. I mean, he's already been a quarterback one in fantasy before several years ago, and I know we're going to fight about that. He won a playoff game. He went to Kansas City and almost won another playoff game. Like, we forget about that all the time. So I think Trevor Lawrence has the ability to get better and be better than he was. Cohen stepping in is going to help him out a ton. This offense is needed to kind of be revamped, re-energized, and I think it got that. And when we look at what you have to pay, I think it's mainly the return on investment, in my opinion, because he's cheap. Like, if you go buy him right now, there's a good chance that he shoots up and he plays a lot better for you long term than you might have in another name. Like, if I know Hoff, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Would you rather have Trevor Lawrence or Brock Purdy? I'd much rather have Trevor Lawrence. And I think there's a world where some people would rather have Brock Purdy. And to me, that's just a little bit too far. Lawrence, QB 8 in 2022, QB 13 in 2023. Last year I already mentioned he had all the injuries, but he could absolutely produce. And like I said, the offensive weapons got better. BTJ, he didn't even really get to play with him yet. And we add Travis Hunter to this offense, who in my opinion was the wide receiver one of the class last year. And I don't care about him playing defense because I think he's a really good wide receiver. That's only going to help Trevor Lawrence. He gets 2 big targets that can create space and make opportunities for him. Brenton Strange coming in. We've got a trio of running backs, whether Bashal Tutin's going to be the guy, maybe Travis Etienne gets better, or it's Tank Bigsby. I don't care. I just think that the value is there for Trevor Lawrence to be better than he was and get better going forward, and that's what I'm after in Dynasty, because right now he's a cheap buy.
So I'm curious. I was listening and I was trying to process, okay, Purdy versus him, how would I feel? Did you ever say what he was actually worth? What does KTC say that he's worth right now? What is he equivalent to? Do you have that pulled up?
I don't have it pulled up, but I can pull it up while you.
Okay. While you look, Hoff is watching, by the way. He said Brock Purdy over Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that's
But
crazy. That's crazy.
he does love the potential with Cohen. I think the main thing here, I think, is probably his potential is there, especially with Cohen. We've seen what Cohen did with Baker, how he kind of revived his career there. I mean, he was looking better, previously when he was with the Rams for 10 days and Sean McVay made him look like the next big thing. Um, he went to Tampa Bay and succeeded in the Liam Cohen offense. And I really hope that he does bring life to Trevor Lawrence back, because a lot of people in Dynasty, they're out on Trevor Lawrence. They're like, I don't want any part of him, and it wasn't too long ago that, he was touted as the golden boy. He was the next Peyton Manning. He was a little bit more athletic, still is, I think. He can still run, he can still extend the pocket, and use his legs when he needs to, but he's got to stay healthy. I think personally, see, it's kind of close. I have Purdy over him in my rankings. The only reason I say that, though, is because I know what Purdy is, and I value stability at the quarterback position. As much as I may love upside, I like the stability aspect, and I would rather have Purdy as my quarterback 2 versus Trevor Lawrence. Now, who's to say that Trevor Lawrence doesn't come out at the first of the year here, put together a good string of games with, his new toy and Travis Hunter and, BTJ. And then maybe that changes. He'll probably go up my rankings here. And I think it will be interesting. His ADP, for on Sleeper right now is right at 61. And I'm actually kind of curious, Matt, because the name right above him at quarterback 17, so Trevor's quarterback 18 off the board. At quarterback 17 is another guy that you like, and that's J.J. McCarthy.
I knew you were going to say that.
If you had to pick between those two, I know you're buying Trevor Lawrence right now. And for me, I'm probably a hold if I have him, and buy if I don't because of value right now, if I had to guess. But if you had to pick J.J. McCarthy, Trevor Lawrence, who has the better year and why?
I'm sticking with my rankings. I have J.J. McCarthy ahead of him in Dynasty rankings. So if I had my pick between him and Trevor Lawrence, I'll go J.J. If I had to pick who's going to have the better year, like this upcoming season redraft, probably give me Trevor. I think that's the stability you're talking about, because there's a world where JJ kind of, has some struggles. It's year 1 of him starting. He hasn't played football in however many days it is, like 600 or something like that. I don't care. I think he's going to be good. And the reason I like JJ long term is just because who he's tied to. The other JJ, the really dang good one, who's the best player in football that doesn't throw the ball. But really when I step back and look at this, Tyler, it's kind of, you ask the question, where's he at on Keep Trade Cut? What are the names around him? Well, it's a mid first. So the 106, 107 for Trevor Lawrence, I'd much rather have Trevor Lawrence. That's stability. Sam Laporta, depends on your league, depends on your team, I guess. Roma Dunze, Devontae Smith, Kyron Williams, Chase Brown. I'd rather have Trevor Lawrence than all those guys. He's the one that will probably have stability in not only his value, but also his production going forward. And most importantly, Tyler, testing your rankings here, because I know them because I'm staring at them, the name right next to him on Keep Trade Cut, Michael Penix. Trevor Lawrence is QB 18. Michael Penix is QB 19. If I look at my rankings, I have Trevor Lawrence much higher than Michael Penix. And if I look at your rankings, I know the answer.
Yeah, I do have Trevor Lawrence over Michael Penix. And that's based off of, like I said before, I already know what Trevor Lawrence is capable of. I know what Michael Penix is possibly capable of. We saw a glimpse of it last year at the end of the year. But I still want to see more of it. That is my one fault as a dynasty manager. I will go ahead and admit it. I like to see something on the field before I'm willing to just push in my chips and go for it. And that's always been a big thing of mine. Trevor, I have Trevor at quarterback 14, so it's not like I have him low. But I have him at the top of the tier there, and then I have Penix at the top of the next tier at 18. So they're very close. I think, in a vacuum, I'm probably picking Trevor Lawrence this year. As much as I want Penix to succeed, I want to see left-handed spiral come out of Atlanta's backfield like it's nothing, dude. It's so pretty. When he throws the ball, it is a rocket. I'm so excited to watch it. I just want to see it first before I kind of move him up. So, like I said, I'm probably holding Trevor Lawrence if I have him. If you're having to sell those guys like Kyron and all those guys, if you have the depth, I would sell those guys. A mid first. Oh man, the 106, 107. Yeah, if it's a single first, I would probably go for it. There are some people who are like, oh, he's a quarterback. It's super flex. You have to give me multiple firsts. I'm not doing that. I don't even know that I would do a first and a second, to be honest with you. That may be a little too sweet for me. So for me, like I said, kind of a buy hold. I hate doing that. I hate not giving a definitive answer. But I think your conviction in Trevor Lawrence will carry us through as the buy here. And I do want to see him succeed. I want to see what this offense looks like, especially under Liam Cohen. Like I said, I just want to see it first, man.
No one believes more than me, and I have no doubt. If you said this burned me a year from now, I'll say okay, and Coach will probably like beat me until I say, all right, he's not good. But I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. Like I think Trevor Lawrence has proven that he can be okay. As much as we want to fault him and throw up the sheet where he's got identical stats to Daniel Jones, like I can't stand that, man. I just can't. It drives me nuts. And all these guys with first read, they know it too, so they try and tick me off and get me going. But I'll defend Trevor Lawrence until the day I die. So Trevor Lawrence is a buy for me. We don't have any new comments, so if you're here, throw something in the chat. Let us know you're here. If you got a player you want us to talk about, you got a trade, please let us know. We're happy to help you out and give our thoughts. We're looking to talk about anything and everything we can. But Tyler, let's just carry on and let's get to our next player here. Who you got?
Yeah. So my dynasty buy that I'm getting, I know this price tag is going to be a little pricey here, but I'm going with Sam Laporta, tight end out of Detroit. If you don't know that, I don't know where you've been hiding under a rock. So as of right now, as far as ADP goes on Sleeper, he's the tight end 3 off of the board. Looking at last year, he finishes as tight end 7, so 60 receptions, 83 targets, 726 yards, and 7 touchdowns. The main complaint with Sam Laporta, especially his rookie year, and probably coming into last year, was he was very touchdown dependent. And I think maybe last year we saw a little bit more stability in terms of receptions. I know he didn't break 100 targets, but 93 targets as a tight end is pretty hefty, I feel like. And you want those guys that are going to be involved in the offense. I don't think Sam Laporta is going anywhere. And overall, even if he is touchdown dependent, guess who Jared Goff likes to throw the ball to in the red zone? And that is Sam Laporta. It's either him or Amon-Ra. It's every time. J-Mo can get his explosive plays. We talked about J-Mo a little bit earlier when we were talking about Pickens. But, Laporta is going to be that stable force. He's going to get open. He's going to be where he needs to be. And Jared Goff loves that. Jared Goff is the stable quarterback who's not moving the pocket a lot. He needs his guys to be where they need to be on time and open. And that is what Sam Laporta is good at. I think a lot of people probably, look at his rookie season and, they're like, oh, well, he was the tight end 1. He had 120 targets that year as a rookie tight end, which is insane, and 10 touchdowns. So, last year, taking the step back to 80 or, 83, 93 targets, wherever it was at, and 7 touchdowns, that's still a healthy range. And he finished as the tight end 7. And at this point, he's already had a number 1 finish. So that's a big checkbox there for tight ends in any dynasty format. And I think, like we said earlier, I think he's stable. I don't think he's going anywhere. We have this conversation. I think me and you have had it several years in a row now of where do you put George Kittle in, right? George Kittle, when he plays, is elite. We know that, especially when there's nobody else there with him, when Ayuk went down or when Debo was down and he didn't have as much competition, they fed Kittle all year. But he is injury prone. As much as we want to say it, he is injury prone. And so for me, if I'm sitting on George Kittle and somebody's like dying to have him, I'm willing to move him for Laporta, even if I've got to add something to it. Honestly, I mean, that age difference, the stability that he brings, he's on a great offense. And I don't think he's going anywhere. I think you want one of those top like 7 to 8 tight ends, which he's finished there both years of his NFL career. So give me that shot. Give me the stability at tight end to where I'm not having to worry about, if I'm playing, pick one, Jawan Johnson or Taysom Hill or anybody in that tier, because I have my tight end that's plug and play every week.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you mentioned Kittle, Tyler, and what the value is there. I mean, Kittle's almost 32.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Laporta's 24.
Yep.
Like, you could get easily 6 years of Sam Laporta just being a constant top 10 tight end. So as far as it goes for Dynasty, I'm more than happy to pay up to go get him. And really, when we step back and look, yeah, the fantasy finish wasn't necessarily that great last year. I'll throw up the sheet here again. He had 7 touchdowns, 726 yards, 60 receptions on 83 targets, finishes tied in 7 overall. But really, when we look at the box score and kind of look at what happened, I don't know if you remember, but the Lions were really dang good last year, and they won a lot of games, especially early, where they were blowing people out. I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we had the great Rams game to start the year where it was overtime. Then they lost to the Bucks. They come back. They beat the Cowboys 47-9. They beat the Titans 52-14. They beat the they beat the Seahawks 42-29. It's like a lot of these games were over, and he didn't really produce anything because they were
Mm-hmm.
winning by 3 touchdowns going into the fourth quarter. So he didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm not really scared of that because when you go back and look at the end of the year, look at how he finished. I mean,
Yeah.
week 15, 15 points. Week 16, 12 points. Week 17, 15 points. Week 18, 10 points. So like he had some good fantasy finishes to close out the year. It's only
Mm-hmm.
his second year. I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens with this offense. Does Ben Johnson leaving create a hole or a void? I don't suddenly think that the Lions are going to be bad overnight. I do think Ben Johnson was really good. Maybe there is some slight regression, but I don't think that that's necessarily going to correlate with Sam Laporta playing poorly. I mean, you mentioned going from tight end 1 overall his rookie year to tight end 7 last year. The big issue was he touchdown dependent? Well, he had 10 in year 1 and he had 7 last year. That's not
Mm-hmm.
that difference. The big thing is he didn't have the receptions. I mean, he had 60 receptions last year, 86 in the rookie year. I absolutely think he could float around that 70 to 80 number again, get the yards up closer to 900, and we're right back at that same fantasy finish. So Laporta is someone I'm absolutely in on. He's my tight end 3. You mentioned it's going to be an expensive buy, but go buy Sam Laporta. I think it makes sense, especially if you need a tight end and you're a team that's ready to compete.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you brought up the games at the end of the year there. When you're sitting there, sorry, excuse me. When you're sitting there and at the end of the year, you're talking about 14, 12 points at the end of the year, 15, what all. That doesn't sound like a lot. But when you have a tight end that is able to get you that production, and then you go to a team that doesn't have a tight end that can give you that, and you're hoping for like 4 on a week, it's huge. Like if you have a tight end that's averaging 10 points or more, that's helping you drastically. We always like to see, oh, the big games. Kittle can get you 20 some point games, 30 some point games. You see wide receivers hitting the 40s or 50s and all this, that, and the other. Like, to me, I don't even need all that. I don't need the flashiness at tight end. I want a stable asset. And I know that if I'm getting Sam Laporta, he's 24. I know as long as his situation stays the same, he's going to produce about the same. I'm not really worried about Ben Johnson leaving. They kind of promoted from within, if I understand correctly. And I believe in Dan Campbell, in terms of, I think he's built a good roster. And let's also not forget too, you were talking about the back half of the year there and how he started producing more. Well, what happened? All of the defense got hurt. They had to get him more involved because they weren't blowing people out anymore. So he had to become involved. And I'm not saying that, the Lions defense is still going to be hurt or they'll have as many injuries, but those injuries take time to recover. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson, he's running around now, but people are still saying he doesn't look the same. So if their defense, if they regress at all, and they're not this elite defense where they stop the Cowboys, 47-9 or whatever like that, and this game becomes more competitive, Laporta is going to have to be involved. He just is. And to me, I'm willing to take the bet, even if it's expensive, and I want Sam Laporta on my team.
Yeah, because it's ultimately going to be the player that you don't have to worry about starting going forward. He's going to solve that position, especially if you're in any type of tight end premium league. Now, the big issue is will he be available? That's going to be league dependent. I mean, if we went and bought him this offseason, I believe, on a team we both co-manage, and it was just the perfect storm. It was a guy who was looking to rebuild. We didn't have a tight end, and we said, hey, let's make the move. Let's go all in. We push the chips in. Now our team looks like one of the best in the league. So we're really excited to see what he can do. I mean, we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're actually buying these players when we're telling you guys to buy them. So I have no problem with, pushing the chips in and going after Laporta. But anything else you want to add, Tyler, or you want to jump to the question we got in the chat?
I would just want to pull up Chris's question here. He brings up a good thing. You trust good players on good teams. Is Laporta a good player? Yes, obviously. Are the Lions a good team? Yes, obviously. That's end the question. Trust the good players on good teams. It's going to work out. And, at the end of the day, I think you'll end up ahead if you've got that stable tight end production.
Totally agree. Let's get to Dylan's question here. He says, would you tear down Puka to Tet with a 27-1 and 2 coming back your way? I mean, that's a big fall. I mean, in the wide receiver realm, if I have a guy that's in the top 5, which, spoiler alert, Puka's in my top 5, I don't like to tear out. Now, granted, you've got a bad person to ask this question to because everyone here calls me the Tet hater. But, I mean, if Pete were here, he might do this deal. Me personally, I would not do this deal. I think you could get more. If I'm moving down from Puka to Tet McMillan, it better be because of one thing. One, I'm rebuilding and I have to go down to the studs. And if that's the case, I will move to Tet, but let's change that 27-1 and let's change that 27-2 to a 26-1. I want multiple firsts. If I'm moving a big-time player or a big-time asset like Puka Nacua, I need to get some sort of big-name player back coming my way, plus the picks. And I think a first and a second, not only not next year, but a year after that, that's way too far for me. I think you can get more for that. I mean, Puka right now, in my opinion, is one of those players that could command 3 firsts from a manager who really wants to go and compete and win. So you can get that coming back your way. Knowing what Tet McMillan is, a mid first, 104 to 105, depending on your league. He's valuable, but you're also getting a worse offense. I think we all agree that the Panthers offense is not going to be as good as the Rams offense. Bryce Young, even if he gets better, is not Matt Stafford. And I would expect Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua to put up better numbers than Tet McMillan being the only guy in Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at this point, I'm sitting there shaking my head. I'm like, no, please don't do this deal. I may like Tet, being here in North Carolina. Obviously, I want the Panthers to succeed. I would love for us to have a great wide receiver. And I do think he'll be good. I think he'll get the targets. But it's not every day that you get a Puka that comes on up on the trade block or even able to be traded for. And this is not something I would even entertain at this point. It's just too big of a gap. Like Matt said, the 27-1 and 2, you're going to have to at least move that 27 second to a 26 first. And I would probably prefer multiple 26 firsts. And that's still probably not enough. I know that's kind of crazy to say, but if I'm getting Tet, I'm still taking a chance that he's not any good. And he was a first round pick this year. So for me, we've had this conversation off stream, in chats and stuff. And we say all the time, we're like, just about any player, if they are worth 3 firsts, it might be worth it to sell them just because of so much value. But at this point, when you have a perennial top 5 wide receiver, why would you want to sell Puka for 3 firsts unless it's just an extreme scenario where you have that he's the only piece you have, and even still, it's a lot to do that because now you have to hit on every first that you get.
Exactly.
And
that's the key point right there.
That's
you're going
to
to have to
scary
hit
part.
on everything.
Yeah.
Um,
And Puka was drafted what? I mean, he was drafted in the third in one of our leagues. I think we picked him up off waivers and won. So
yeah,
he was not drafted where he is
not to
now.
be this, no,
No.
and he's 24. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like we're saying, "Oh, you're getting younger," like tearing off AJ Brown. You're moving off a guy that's 24 to go get a guy that's 22 and going to be
Mhm.
23 next year. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that big of a difference. Puka's got, whether his report's true, if he's going to play until he's 30, I don't care. I'm playing for the next 2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
and Puka's going to be great for that. We've seen his value, and we've even seen it with another superstar on the opposite side of him. He produced with
Mhm.
Cooper Cup playing, and Cup was still playing well. And if we go look at Ted McMillan, do you know for a fact that he will be a top 10 wide receiver next year or going forward in Dynasty? I personally don't think that, and I don't think it's a fact, and I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. The odds of Ted McMillan being a bust, I don't think are that far from him being great. Like, I think they're pretty similar. I mean, the Carolina offense and the Carolina situation hasn't been the most inspiring situation. So do you think that
Mhm.
they're suddenly just going to get it right and Ted McMillan's going to be a superstar? I hope, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not ready to say it's going to happen. I think it could happen, but I don't think it's going to necessarily
Mhm.
be a lock to happen. And you mentioned if you get that first and you get that second, and even let's say it's 227 first, you better hit on them. And
Yep.
guess what? If you make that deal and you move them and you get the 110 and the 112, it just got that much harder. So if you're
Mhm.
moving a big time player like Puka, you better make sure for a fact one of those first is going to be early. And I'm one of those people where if you tell me you have a projected early first in 2027, I'm going to tell you you don't know.
Mhm.
I can't stand when we project 2027 first because so much can happen between now and then.
Yeah.
It's easier to project picks going forward the next year, and it still can be wrong. Like, you have to be ready to say, I was wrong and that team was good. Coach and I co-managed a team that went to the championship, and frankly, it was not very good. Like, our
Mhm.
team was nothing special, but we were able to just find our way. We made small moves, just continue to get better and better and better, and win weeks 1 week at a time. You never know if that's going to happen with a manager. So making a deal like this is really risky.
Yeah. Oh, and two, think about it this way too, man. I mean, you bring up the point of the 2027 first and where that could end up. Who's willing to make a deal for Puka? It's not another rebuilding team, probably.
Mhm.
Not like this.
Yeah, it's a team
You're
going
not.
all in.
Yeah, it's a team going all in. So if that succeeds, if their plan comes to fruition, that 2027 first could be the 112. It could be the worst. You could be giving him the keys to a back-to-back championship run at this point. So, to me, I wouldn't do that deal. It would take a lot more than just Tet and a 2027 first and a second for me to get rid of Puka.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, we are almost at the hour mark, so let's just get to our last dynasty buy. And this is one that it's a tough day for me to be a Washington fan and doing this, but this is one that I wanted to add someone that could be a cheap buy that's also a reasonable buy. If you go out and make an offer for Jake Ferguson, I think it's a good chance you can get the deal done. For me, he's a dynasty buy. I mean, when we step back and look, he's only 26 years old. I've already talked a bunch about this Dallas offense and what Dak Prescott's going to bring to the table, throwing the ball almost 600 times in years where he's been fully healthy. The opportunity is there. Yes, Pickens is going to eat. Yes, CD Lamb is going to eat. But Ferguson has been that guy that kind of plays underneath and has the ability to get the targets, kind of absorb, some underneath stuff. He's not going to do a ton of stretch in the field. Maybe that changes. I don't think it does, but he's going to get his value. I mean, last year, the quarterback play in Dallas, not necessarily great. 59 receptions on 86 targets for almost 500 yards. No touchdowns. That's the important part right there. No touchdowns. If I had to guess, I would expect some positive regression in that case because it's not likely that a starting tight end is going to end the year with no touchdowns. If we go back just 1 year before that, he had 5 touchdowns. If he gets 5 touchdowns, that's going to shoot his value up even more. He missed 3 games last year too, so I think there's plenty of opportunity for Jake Ferguson. And I have this question to ask you, Tyler. I'm not sure if you know this. Do you know what tight end forced the most missed tackles in the entire NFL? It was Jake Ferguson.
I was going
It
to
was
say
him.
that's.
It was him. And I think that's kind of surprising. We don't expect him to be the guy to create plays in space. He was actually tied with Tucker Kraft, so I'll give Kraft his flowers. But the important thing is he can make moves to progress the ball downfield. If this offense between Pickens and Lamb gets better, we know the run game is going to be questionable. Dak will be throwing the ball. Ferguson could be the guy that's underneath, be the safety blanket, be the check down guy, and keep the chains moving. So there's absolutely value for me to go and get him, especially if you're in any type of tight end premium league, because I think this is one of those players where you can say, hey, I need a tight end. I don't really have anybody. Give me, here's a 3rd round pick. Give me Jake Ferguson. There's a chance that goes through. And I would absolutely pay that if I'm getting a starting tight end coming back. I mean, if you go look on Keep Trade Cut, he's tight end 18. I mean, there's plenty of names in that range that are just rookies that we don't even know if are going to play, start, or have an opportunity, like Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, and Terrence Ferguson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for that price, if you're getting a 3rd for Jake Ferguson, like we said, he's a starting tight end. It's kind of hard to just be out on it. But I'm going to argue the opposite side because I know you're trying to buy him. So I'm going to argue that. So as of right now, I have Jake Ferguson at my tight end 19, somewhere around there. For me, right, even if the Cowboys are throwing the ball almost 600 times, right, if that's the case, we're probably assuming that Jake Ferguson is 3rd target in the offense, or are you putting him as the 2nd target behind CD?
He'll be the 3rd target. I think that there's no question about that. That it'll be Lamb, Pickens, then likely Ferguson, maybe Javonte if he kind of becomes that scat back and they use him in that way. But generally speaking, I think he's the number 3 on any given down.
So with that being said, right, like so let's say he does have positive touchdown regression. Let's say he gets 4 or 5, like you said, like he goes back to the year before. I don't know that that's enough at tight end to really matter much. We were kind of talking about it with Laporta. You want the stability here. And while Ferguson is a starting tight end on what we assume to be a high-powered offense, it almost comes to the point where I would rather take a shot on a younger guy or just somebody in the same ballpark range who may be in a better situation. So for me, like I was trying to look at my rankings. Like I have Isaiah Likely ahead of him. I think that's a better situation. We've seen Isaiah Likely do it. I also have this is a rookie.
Have we?
We have.
Sorry,
it's just Mark Andrews is also there. That's the thing.
The opportunity. That's my thing. Is the opportunity is not there. Like I think there's great difference between the dynasty value. You know what I mean? Of a guy like Terrence Ferguson. I love his dynasty outlook going forward. He's more expensive than Terrence Ferguson. Yeah, and I admit I have Terrence Ferguson ahead of him in my rankings. But I'm talking about if you had to go buy someone right now. You know, let's take our trade that we did for Sam Laporta a few minutes ago. We were talking about. Let's say we can't get him, and we need someone to start. Ferguson is the perfect example of I need someone for this year, maybe next year, not really sure, but we'll figure it out later. Like a 3rd to go get a starting tight end who has the ability to finish top 10, top 12 at the position. I mean, he was tight end 8 2 years ago when he played the full season. He had 102 targets, 71 catches, almost 761 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I could absolutely see him do that again on a better Dallas Cowboys offense. Gross. I hate that I said that out loud. But the point remains is that I just feel like he is such a cheap buy. He's only 26. It's only going to be his 4th year in the league. Still on his first contract. There's a lot to like for me and Jake Ferguson. But go ahead. I stole your moment, so you're good. You're back.
So 2 names I want to bring up. One, you're going to kind of be like, that's probably the same boat. He's probably going to play 3rd fiddle at least, and that being Cade Otton in Tampa Bay. I think it's very similar outlook there. I mean, you're probably, like I said, 3rd fiddle, behind Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, depending on what the rookies look like, or rookie in Igbuka, and then you've also got Jalen McMillan where he falls in. There's a lot more competition there, so I might lean Ferguson there. But just a name to bring up, the one that I want to bring up to you that might actually cause some internal struggle here, because I know how everybody apparently at first read feels about it other than me, and that's Brenton Strange.
That's a great one. So
you love Brenton Strange, and you
Mhm.
talk about how Ingram's vacated targets, Christian Kirk's vacated targets. Yes, they brought in Travis Hunter, but Strange has this opportunity to fill in, and you're projecting an uptick for the Jags offense here. If you
Yeah.
had to pick, are you taking Ferg or are you taking Strange?
Oh man, that's tough. I'll go with my personal rankings. They have Strange above Ferguson, but I will say they are back to back. They are right next to each other. I've got to clean it up because we've had some changes, obviously, with the Johnu and the Pat
Mhm.
Fryermuth trade. So I haven't updated my tight end rankings totally, but I do have Strange and Ferguson back to back. So I think you're kind of flipping a coin of which one do you want to take.
Mhm.
Um, Strange might be the unknown cheaper buy. It depends on what kind of hype there is around him in your league. Whereas I think Ferguson is just kind of that, is he good? He's okay. He's okay. You get the manager to go back and look at his box score from last season. They're going to go, do I really need him? Especially if they have a starting tight end. That's the
Yeah.
main thing to focus on here. If a team out there has, Bowers, McBride, Laporta, Hawkinson, Kittle, whoever it is that
Mhm.
starter is known, and then, Ferguson's their second or third tight end, great team to go and target because you can say, you don't need him, man. Give him to me. I'll give you a pick. You re-roll that pick, and maybe you get the next one. You get the
Mhm.
next, you know, Mason Taylor or whoever. So I think that's kind of a coin flip of whichever way you want to go. I'll say Strange just because I hyped up Trevor Lawrence today, and I
I
don't want
just
to hype up
I
any
just
more
had to throw
Cowboys.
it out there. I wanted to see what you would say. The name that I want to bring up, he's not necessarily younger, and he's probably a little more like costly, but a name that I would rather go after is probably David Njoku.
Mm,
That's somebody that I like. He is athletic. There's no denying that. When they target him, when they focus him in the offense, he has shown that he can produce. Now, whether or not they do that is a whole nother question. It is also the Browns. So we don't even know who the quarterback is. But, you've got Joe Flacco there, who is a veteran. He can spread the ball around. I think that's going to help if he starts. If it's Kenny Pickett, I'm probably out on all the Browns. I don't
yep.
believe in Kenny Pickett at all. Um, but interestingly enough, if it's one of the rookies in either Gabriel or Shador, I'm almost inclined to take Njoku even more because we've seen over the years that you have all of these young quarterbacks that need a safety net and they need that athletic person that they know they're going to be open and they're going to be where they need to be. And so to me, that is Njoku, and he's behind Jerry Judy and Cedric Tillman. And I think at that point, if it's not your wide receiver one and Judy, I think your next best target is going to be Njoku for a rookie quarterback. So I think in just about every world outside of Kenny Pickett, I think Njoku is actually going to have a pretty decent year. So for me, that's probably where I would lean. Yes, he is a little bit older, but he's also a little more athletic. That would have been my second guess for your forced missed tackles question, but I figured that since you brought it up, it had to have been Jake Ferguson, as we're talking about him now. Chris brings up, he said, just have Bowers on your roster and close the book at tight end. If we could all have Bowers on our roster, absolutely we would do that. But unfortunately, there's only one of him to go around unless you play in a copy league. And I feel like that's a very niche aspect.
Hmm.
So, but no, for real, for me, I just kind of wanted to banter back and forth because these, at the end of the day, it's like we said, you want one of the top guys. You're taking dart throws at this point. If you're getting down into this range of Jake Ferguson, Brent Strange, those guys, it's a third round pick most likely, and a dart throw. You're closing your eyes and you're just praying you hit the bullseye, um,
Yep. I,
or
I
even get
totally agree.
close.
Yeah,
Even get close.
you're just seeking any type of value you can get, whether it's for immediate production on your team or something
Mm-hmm.
to flip later down the road. I mean, I know you know that about me. I have no problem taking a player and immediately moving them.
Nope.
There's plenty of players that I have traded for and traded away without ever even having them, especially like in the offseason moments like this. But yeah, that's all of our buy sells here today, Tyler. Is there anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I just I want to have people kind of tuned in where we mentioned it a little bit on X through different channels here. I know Chris talked about it, Pete's talked about it. Um, but we are actually kind of putting together a Discord server here. There's going to be a lot of things involved. We'll leave out details for now, but just be on the lookout for that. We're going to be dropping that here reasonably soon. I'm still trying to iron out some details and everything like that, but it is going to be a place where you can interact with us, one-on-one, or if you want to talk to all the mediators, we'll all be here. We're willing to listen to you and talk and give you some advice. So feel free to check that out whenever that comes out. There'll be more information on that coming up. We appreciate you guys all for being in here. I feel like Albert's always in here. I know Jamie's in here a lot. He was one of the first comments we had. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. It feels like you guys are here every live stream, and that's a really awesome feeling to have, recurring viewers come back. So just from me as well as everybody else, and Matt, Coach, First Read, all of us, we really appreciate you guys being here. Other than that, man, I'm excited for football to be here. We're so close.
We're close, man.
I'm so ready. I know I'm like, man, the year has flown by, but that just means we get closer to football at this point. So,
hey, every day that we're closer is a good day. So I'm really excited. You mentioned the Discord. You're going to have access to our personal rankings. So you can get in there, see where we're putting these players, tier breakdowns, people we're buying, people we're selling. All sorts of content will be on the Discord. A lot to really look forward to and like. So I'm super excited to continue to work with not only First Read, not only the mediators, but with the community. You're going to have a chance to interact with us. Give us your questions. We've got team reviews, trade reviews, all in the works. So stay tuned for all of that. A bunch of things in store for First Read. But if you are still here, please be sure to like the stream. Subscribe to First Read Fantasy if you have not already. It greatly helps us out. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we will catch you next time.